The old Victorian house stood silent on Maple Street, its weathered facade a stark contrast to the manicured lawns of its neighbors. Sarah and Tom pulled into the driveway, their car packed to the brim with boxes and dreams of a fresh start. "Well, here we are," Tom said, squeezing Sarah's hand. "Our very own fixer-upper." Sarah smiled, but her eyes betrayed a hint of uncertainty. "It's certainly charming." They spent that first day unpacking, their laughter echoing through empty rooms as they imagined the life they'd build within these walls. By nightfall, exhaustion had set in, and they collapsed into bed, surrounded by half-empty boxes and the musty scent of history. It was just past midnight when Sarah stirred, her sleep disturbed by an odd sound. Footsteps, muffled but distinct, seemed to be coming from downstairs. She nudged Tom awake. "Do you hear that?" she whispered. Tom listened, his brow furrowing. "It's probably just the house settling," he reassured her, but his voice lacked conviction. The footsteps continued, accompanied now by faint voices. Sarah's blood ran cold as she recognized her own laughter floating up from below. That's us," she breathed. From earlier today, Tom sat up, fully alert now. "That's impossible." They crept downstairs, hearts pounding. The living room was empty, bathed in moonlight. Yet the sounds persisted, always just beyond reach, as if the very walls were whispering their conversations from hours before. At precisely 1:17 p.m., silence fell once more. Sarah clutched Tom's arm. "What just happened?" He shook his head, unable to form words to explain the inexplicable. The next night they stayed awake, waiting. As the clock struck midnight, it began again. Their voices, their movements, replayed with eerie precision. They followed the sounds from room to room, pressing ears against walls that seemed to pulse with remembered life. Days passed, and a pattern emerged. Every night, without fail, the house relived their day. At first it was almost amusing, a strange quirk of their new home. But as weeks wore on, the charm faded, replaced by a growing unease. "Maybe we should talk to someone," Sarah suggested one morning, dark circles under her eyes. "The previous owners, or—" Tom cut her off. "And say what? That our house has a perfect memory? They'll think we're crazy." But it wasn't just memory. Slowly and perceptibly at first, things began to change. It started with a misplaced word, a laugh that sounded slightly off. Then entire conversations shifted, becoming darker, filled with accusations and veiled threats. One night, Sarah heard her own voice hiss from behind the kitchen tiles. "He's lying to you. He's always been lying." Tom, meanwhile, was haunted by phantom arguments, his disembodied voice shouting things he'd never said. They began to doubt themselves, doubt each other. Sleep became elusive, every creak and groan of the house a potential harbinger of the nightly performance. In desperation, they reached out to the realtor who had sold them the property. Her cheerful demeanor faltered when they described the phenomena. "Old houses have quirks," she said, her smile brittle. "I'm sure it's nothing to worry about." But her eyes wouldn't meet theirs, and she ended the conversation abruptly. Tom, driven by a need for answers, began researching the house's history. What he found chilled him to the bone. Disappearances stretching back decades. Families who'd vanished without a trace, leaving behind only whispers of strange noises in the night. As autumn deepened into winter, so too did the house's hold on them strengthen. The replays became more vivid, more insistent. Sometimes in the depths of night, They heard other voices mingling with their own. Children laughing, a woman weeping, a man's angry shouts. "We have to leave," Sarah said one morning, her face gaunt with fear. "This place, it's not right." Tom nodded, too exhausted to argue. They packed quickly, throwing clothes and essentials into suitcases. As the sun set, they stood in the foyer, keys in hand, ready to flee. But when midnight struck, the house awoke with a vengeance. The walls seemed to vibrate with sound. Not just their voices now, but a cacophony of lives lived and relived. Footsteps thundered above them, around them. Doors slammed of their own accord. "You can't leave," the house whispered in Sarah's voice. "You belong to us now," it growled in tongues. They ran for the front door, only to find it sealed shut. Windows refused to budge. The very structure of the house seemed to shift and warp around them, trapping them in an endless maze of memories. Sarah screamed, her voice joining the chorus of trapped souls. Tom pounded against unyielding walls, begging for release. But the house only laughed, a sound built from decades of captured mirth and misery. As dawn broke, silence once again fell over the old Victorian on Maple Street. To passers-by, it looked much the same as always, perhaps a bit more weathered, its paint a shade duller. Inside, however, the walls hummed with new voices, new stories to be told and retold in the endless cycle of nights. For the house that replays nights never truly sleeps. It listens, it remembers, and it keeps. And somewhere in the spaces between floorboards and behind peeling wallpaper, Sarah and Tom's voices join the eternal chorus, forever reliving that final, terrifying night. The realtor will show the house again soon. Another couple, perhaps drawn by the charm of its history and the promise of a fresh start. They'll move in on a Saturday, unpack their boxes, and laugh about the mountain of work ahead. But no one will tell them about midnight. No one ever does. Thank you for listening. Don't forget, subscribe DarkWhisper AI. Leave a comment. The next episode will be up soon, don't miss. Goodbye.